doing, folks? Welcome back to the GM's Alcove. Got another episode in my refight of the Battle of Tifernum. A battle from SPQR, a game by GMT Games. The game covers all the battles and history of the Roman Republic, all their wars. In this case, we're fighting the Battle of Tifernum. It's Roman against Samnite, and so far, it's going pretty good. We just finished turn one. We covered a lot of the basics of the rules, and now we're going to get into the flow of play and see who wins this epic fight. So, folks, let's get ready. Let's jump into this and roll some dice. The Battle of Tifernum. All right, so here we are at the top of turn two, and you know what that means. It's time to roll to see if that flanking force of the Romans arrives. We use the white dice here. Now, starting on the second turn, they need to roll a d10. If it's 6 or greater, flanking force arrives. Location that I chose at the beginning of the battle, which was location B. I'll show that in a second. So that's the first thing to consider here before we get into the turn. So let's make this roll. 6 or greater on turn 2. That number decreases as the turns go up. So in turn 3, it'll be a 5 or greater, and so on. But let's see if they show up. 4, they do not arrive. They need to roll 6 or greater. Again, starting on turn 3, I'm going to roll this at the top of the turn. It's going to be a 5 or greater for that flanking detachment to arrive. And of course, if you look at the top, I got locations A, B, and C marked. Those 2 hexes in each location. The possible arrival point of the detachment, which is made up of 4 units of Astati and a Tribune. So folks, now let's get into turn 2 proper. So as we look at the disposition of the forces after one full turn of action, got a lot going on here. Turn's going to start off with the lowest initiative leaders activating, which is going to be the Romans. All the tribunes of Perfect are going to be going. Then it's going to go over to the Samnites for the most part. Rulianus will jump in there, and then after that, the final 2 leaders of the Samnites will go, the highest rated. And what I'm going to do this turn, first thing we want to do is we want to resolve this fighting as early as possible. Get that all resolved. I want the Romans to advance quickly and engage the Samnites all along their battle line, even if that means conforming to their echelon formation here, where their right flank is refused, the Samnites, that is. So we're going to push forward. That'll probably disrupt my formation slightly, the Romans. We're going to keep our cavalry withheld as long as possible. We are somewhat superior to the Samnites, at least in numbers. Mostly light cavalry for the Samnites. They do have some heavy cavalry units, though, that will have to be dealt with. Don't want to have to deal with that. But that is the situation with them. But for the most part, we're going to get that first line of Astati moved forward. Now, this area right here is dominated by the Roman velites. We pretty much kick the butts of the light infantry, the Samnites. And we're going to take a portion of these velites and move them to the right, because there is an opening right here to get behind some of those advanced Samnite infantry that are currently engaged here. I want to get behind them if I can, take advantage of this little gap and see if we can do some damage in there. But for the most part, the velites will continue to hold their position, preferably advancing within harassment distance, which is 2 hexes for them. And in future activations of the Roman leaders, we'll hopefully be able to fire using harassment and dispersal against the Roman or the Samnite battle line over here. So we're going to focus on that. I don't anticipate the Romans advancing too far, at least into contact on this side during this turn. It could happen, depends on what the Samnites do. But we're going to push hard here, engage over here with the velites, try and exploit this hole. And as far as the Samnites are concerned, not eager to resolve this, but like I said with the Romans, they are eager to resolve it. I need to reinforce this. I don't want to just have them wiped out, and they're not in good shape. This is a 50-50 chance. I think it favors the Romans over here. If I can move troops up to keep the pressure on the Romans until the second line units, the main line units, arrive, that'll be fine. I am going to have to fill this gap a little bit. I don't want to advance this portion of the line too far at the moment, maybe just a little bit. We'll see. I am going to have to contend with these velites. But remember, we want to withhold our right flank. and focus our attacks here. So I need to push strong here. Now this shows the difficulty of a maneuver like this. They do have some superior command, and I'm able to do quite a bit with it, but doing one of these echelon attacks like this, I'm attacking on one wing and refusing the other, it's not an easy task. It's easy to get line formations broken up and require more effort from the leaders to keep things moving and holes from appearing in the battle line. So it is difficult, but it's fun to see and it's fun to explore. So we're going to keep working with this. You'll probably see this second line engaged as well as moving up in here to fill the gap. We want to keep the pressure on. We want to break this Hastati line, get to the Principe, and cause as much damage as we can. I don't want to attack over here until that happens. I might have to shift a couple units from the second main line over to this area because that just makes sense. If you're going to focus your attack here, you want a little extra strength here. I don't need all these troops here, is what I'm trying to say. So we'll see what comes of this. This is the plan anyway, and it's good fun to try it out. So I'm going to show you guys what goes on in this turn. I'll maybe basically show you the results of all these plans and show you how it goes. And I might pop in a couple times just to point out some new rules we haven't explored yet or some heroic moments during the turn. All right, folks, let's get into turn 2. Okay, disaster has stricken the Samnites already. The Romans are currently in this prefect's activation. He's initiative 2. This prefect went first and finished. I did attempt momentum with this prefect. He basically made a line command, moving these Hastati forward a little bit. Over here where we got some support for this combat, he routed this unit, forcing it to take a must-check TQ, and it routed as a result of that. This Velite or this Hastati passed his check. So there was that. There was no real combats. There was combats here. The Romans were victorious, threw back a couple of the Samnite units except this one. So there's still holding here. But the Romans are definitely victorious here. Did attempt a momentum and did it successfully with an initiative 2 perfecta. And the reason I wanted to do that was so that I can get these Velites up into position with a line command, if I'm successful at it. One thing, though, is that a Trump attempt was made, and it was made by Herennius way back here, and the thought procedure behind this was that this was the most threatened position of the Samnites. It could be disastrous for them if the Romans push forward any more over here. The line's basically fallen apart, the first initial van line of the Samnites. I have to shore this up and do something. So I made the Trump attempt. He needed a 5 or less. He failed, which marks him as finished. Herennius can make no activations this turn. So that's a disaster. And it's risky, folks. Those Trump attempts are risky. But you know what? It's fun. So we'll see what happens next. We'll see if Ignatius can save the day over here on the Samnite left flank, which is in jeopardy at this point. All right, folks, let's push on. All right, so I'm still in the second turn, pushed ahead all the way up to Rullianus. Rullianus is located right here. He just currently did a bunch of individual orders, recovering some units mostly. Still got some units routed. But he did attempt a momentum. He was successful, and Ignatius attempted a trump, mainly to prevent Rullianus from utilizing that second momentum because things are getting precarious over here. And unfortunately, disaster strikes the Samnites again. Ignatius failed his trump attempt. He's finished for the turn. So turn 2 is a disaster so far. The Samnites have done absolutely nothing over here. Both the local commanders, including Ignatius, were basically finished before they had a chance to do any orders. And of course, over here, there's not a lot the Samnites want to achieve. They did use some harassment and dispersal over here effectively. Romans over here did nothing with their cavalry. They advanced this line of Hastati forward a little bit, had a little shock combat here, which was very effective, commanded by one of the tribunes. put another Samnite unit in route. Samnites are at 33 route points to the Romans 22. But anyway, we're about to go into Rullianus's first momentum, and the Samnites are finished across the board. That's unfortunate. But yeah, that's the risk you take with trumping. But it is so fun. I have a hard time resisting using it. And I probably use it too much. Probably because I use momentum a lot. But anyway, we're going to go into Rullianus's second activation, and I'll show you the result of that and the conclusion of turn 2. So far, it's looking good for the Romans. All right, so that completes turn 2. We are finished. Rullianus was not able to get that third momentum, and he was hoping for that, because if he had got that, and this is to the benefit of the Samnites, he was going to push forward with this section of the line, the Hastati line, and he was not able to do that. But he did manage to do a lot of rallying, as well as recovering with these frontline units. They're now a little bit more acceptable. 1 or 2 cohesion hits here and there. This one here has no cohesion hits. And so far, it's looking pretty good. This unit rallied. That's one of the non-citizen frontline units, the Hastati line. Going to get him back up there and fill that gap if I can. Still got 2 more units routing here. So the Samnites avoided complete disaster over here. You can see they have a bunch of units up there in the corner. We're now routing for their lives. And these are basically, let's see here, what are they? I think they were the frontline units. Yeah, the van units. Yep. And this one too. So these are 3 units from their initial front line behind the light infantry. Yeah, they fell back. They're going to have to try and rally those as quickly as possible. Their second line, the main line, which was back here, is up in this position here. They have somewhat of a line. It's kind of staggered a little bit to allow troops to route through, which is definitely of benefit. And here's the remnants of that front van line. I think they got 2 units left, both of which are depleted. And they got some light infantry supporting them, kind of holding the Romans back a little bit. But behind them, and Herennius, is the main battle line. So we are going to be somewhat stable here. We've got these units exposed. They were supposed to be connected in an echelon shape here. There is a gap here, but the Samnites did manage to push back the Velites. That did kind of put some hurt in there, did make an attempt at doing so. So it was somewhat successful for the Romans, but not to the degree they would want. There was some harassment fire by the light cavalry over here. The Samnites on the Velites put these guys at missile no, I believe. Yes, missile no. And they're still within harassment range, as is this unit of Samnite Legion equivalent troops. They're still within harassment range of these Velites, which is 2 hexes for them, 4 for the light cavalry. So this unit remains missile no. And that said, I did use some harassment by these Velites against this line. Unfortunately, one of the Velite units was routed because of that. But yeah, I think he's back here, in fact. Yeah, he is. So he's running for his life, too. Little failed harassment and dispersal there. But yeah, that's the situation. The lines for the Romans are pretty much stable. They haven't really pushed forward, but they're ready to do so in turn 3, and that's what they want to do. Could not capitalize on the mistake the Samnites made by pushing a little bit too far with their front line. It's currently in tatters, but they still have an intact second line linking up this whole battle line. So we'll see what the Samnites can do. Turn 2 was pretty much a disaster for the Samnites. They couldn't take advantage of their superior command abilities. Even though they're outnumbered in number of commanders, they have the better ones. And that was because of a lot of trumps, momentum use, failed trumps by the Samnites. Romans were pretty fortunate in that respect. So now we're going to head into turn 3. We're going to make that die roll to see if the the detachment, the flanking detachment arrives. Going to need a 5+, but we'll get into that in turn 3. All right, starting off turn 3, first thing to do is to make that die roll for the detachment. Okay, so now, this is turn 3, we're going to need a 5 or greater on a d10 to see if that Roman flanking detachment arrives. So let's make the roll 5 or greater. Here we go. 5! All right, so what that tells us is this is the turn of the arrival of the Roman tribune with the 4 hastati. They'll arrive during this turn. Now, my little special rule I'm using here is to roll d10 to see exactly which location they come on. Now, if I roll a 0, it's going to come on the location I chose, which was B. Otherwise, the remaining 9 numbers are spread across these 3 equally. And the way I'm going to do it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's a nice dispersal of numbers, totally random. And on a 0, I'm going to come on where I originally chose, which is B. So there's basically 4 chances in 10 that they'll come on where I wanted. And just for fun. So let's roll this. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. We get a 9. So they come on C. All right, so basically what's going to happen here, this tribune and the guys in his little flanking force, they'll be activated as normally according to their initiative. In this case, it's a 3. When he is activated, the units in himself will start coming on by counting the hex that they enter on, one of these 2 hexes. At the conclusion of this orders phase that they do come on, every unit, every Samnite unit within 10 hexes of one of these 4 combat units will have to make a TQ test. And if it passes, it's okay. It suffers a minimum 1 cohesion hit. If it fails, it takes the difference between its TQ and the die roll as cohesion hits. Routed units will automatically be eliminated, so that's going to be quite devastating for these units right from the get-go. Quite devastating because they are arriving in this location. So good thinking on the part of my tribune there, making his entry onto the battlefield. Not where I wanted him to come on, but it worked out. So that's going to be the effect of this. But of course, turn 3, we're going to start off with initiative 2s, which is the Romans down here. They have some tribunes, perfecta, to take care of first. So, and one other thing, at the start of Rullianus's initial orders phase, something else is going to happen. Everybody within every friendly unit, Roman unit, within his command range of 6 will be able to remove 2 cohesion hits. That's a bonus. Everyone else that's not within his 6 command range will remove 1 cohesion hit. So basically, he starts off his orders phase getting his men inspired, rousing them. The fellow Roman army has arrived. That whole thing. It's going to benefit his army substantially, and it's going to hurt the Samnites substantially. So we're going to see how this plays out when the Romans enter initiative 3, and Rullianus begins his orders phase eventually towards the later part of the turn. So folks, we're going to continue with my strategy here. The Romans are pretty solid. They've got their line readjusted, that first initial hastati line. They're going to continue to push forward, going to maintain that line as much as possible. You'll probably see some of these units over here starting to spread out. Maybe, maybe not. The Velites are still up front. I do want to use harass and dispersal tactics against their line back here, as long as they're still holding back with that refused right wing. I might take initiative with my cavalry for the Romans. We shall see. This might be the turn I start to move in, because they're starting to harass my Velites with their own harassment and dispersal tactics down here, where the light cavalry is. I'm pretty confident I can take his cavalry, but we'll see. We'll see what develops. But again, I don't want to push too hard. Don't want to break my formations. We're just going to be a steamroller and push them back. As far as the Samnites are concerned, we're going to continue working with this attack in echelon. I've got to shore up the lines up here a little bit better. We'll see what happens. And I definitely got to do some rallying of these troops back here. But we'll see what happens. These Romans flanking force, they're going to be going first. We'll see if I attempt any trumps against successful momentum. All right, here we are. And the flanking force has arrived. I'll get to that in a second. However, up to this point, what have we done? This Perfecta activated first. He, as predicted, he moved his line of Hastati, this section of it, forward. He can only command non-citizen elements with individual orders, and that's what he did. He moved up this part of the 5th Legion forward. They decimated those van units of the Samnites, which are now en route. The only one that stood its ground was a light infantry right here. In fact, it was interesting. Before I began the movement, the 2 units of Samnite Legion equivalent, they withdrew, which is an option they can do. In this case, they had 1 movement point to withdraw, keeping their original facing. They did so, and they were in this position here, and on each flank of them was light infantry. So they had a nice 4-unit line here. And then the Hastati advanced, had their line. There was combat, there was fighting, and unfortunately the Samnites did not fare well, except here where a light infantry unit of Samnites stood its ground. So, yeah. After that, I did pass a momentum with this Perfecta, and he did a little recovery, and that was it. I didn't push my luck. And next up was this Perfecta over here. He was with the Velites. He got them to do some H&D attacks over here. Managed to get return fire from the Samnites, which basically spent their javelins, so their missile no. Yeah, did some casualties as well. So the Romans fared pretty well here as well. Again, didn't push my luck, and I didn't go with another momentum. Instead, we went to Initiative 3, and I started off with the Flanking Force Detachment. And there you can see them. They moved on from either of these 2 hexes. That's their current location. The Tribune with 4 Hastati units from the 3rd Legion, wanting to get as close to the enemy as they can. And this concludes their orders phase, their initial orders phase. Depends if I want to try and use momentum. But that said, now we do the special rule. Every Samnite unit within 10 hexes of one of these units, TQ test, and if it fails, it takes the difference as hits. Routed units that fail are automatically eliminated. You can see there's 4 of them here. So that if they fail, they'll be automatically eliminated. So what I'll do is I'll make the rolls, most of them off camera, and I'll put the cohesion hits on top of the units and give you the results. All right, so there you go. Those numbers you see there, those are the cohesion hits. All the 1s were actually successful TQ checks. The other numbers, the 3s and the 2s in there that you can see, those were failed checks, and that is the amount of cohesion hits those units will take. I have yet to see if that breaks any of those units. If it does, they will rout. So the next thing to do is I'm going to apply all these hits, and I'm going to apply the routes. So let's see what it looks like after some routing. All right, so there we go. The only units eliminated from this were the ones that were routed originally and were eliminated. So that added, I think, 22 points to the Samnite route point total. They're at 60 so far, which is 1/2 of their route points total. So they're that close to breaking. All the others were just hits. A couple of these units here at 5. I think this one back here, it only has a TQ of 6. It's at 5, so it's 1 more point away from breaking. All in all, not too bad. It could have been worse. But yeah, it really decimated the van troops from the Samnite line. So it looks like it's going to be the main line troops at this point. That's all these guys that are going to be facing off against the Hastati. The Romans are winning this. These units are still engaged. I think this Samnite light infantry is now at 5 cohesion hits. It could take up to 6. So it's not going to last long. All right, folks, that's that. Now, the next effect this flanking detachment has on the game is at the start of Rullianus's activation, his orders phase, his first orders phase, we're going to apply a benefit to all the Roman units. They're going to take away cohesion hits if they're within his distance of 6, command range of 6. Otherwise, a minimum of 1 will be removed from cohesion hits of everybody beyond that 6 command range. So it's pretty good. Inspiring. The Romans are falling back into ranks, falling back into order. Hope fills their hearts. Unlike the Samnites, who are basically given up. Said, uh-oh, here comes the other army. We're doomed. In actuality, it's just 4 Hastati units here with the Tribune. So, yeah, that's the process so far, folks. Okay, let's continue turn 3. Next up is going to be this prefecta over here in charge of the cavalry. I also have these 2 tribunes left to go with initiatives of 3, and that'll finish the Romans. Then it's going to go over to Pontius and Statius, which are initiative 4s, then to Rullianus. We'll apply that special rule, and then finally the last 2, Herennius and Ignatius, the Samnite commanders, see what they can do. All right, folks, I don't know. Let's see what happens next. And there we go. That concludes today's little episode. We're well into turn 3. The next episode, we're going to finish off the Romans' initial activations of their commanders, and then we're going to get into the Samnites and eventually Rullianus. Be curious to see how the Samnites respond to the arrival of the flanking force of the Romans. They were quite devastating on the ranks of the Samnites as their morale began to wane and they began to flee the battlefield, fearing the arrival of the Second Roman Army. Little did they know. But it's interesting nonetheless, folks. Okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed. Like, share, comment, leave me some feedback. If you like this sort of thing, let me know and I'll make more. Until next time, folks, you guys hang in there. It's only going to get better. See you next time, folks. Take care.